Hello everybody, and welcome to a little bit of a introduction to one of my personal little favorite chill-out games. Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen here. So you might have heard a few different takes on what this game even is. Like a lot of times I see it described as like an RTS, SRPG kind of situation. Honestly, when people ask me about it, I more or less describe it about the same way. Because it's hard to describe this thing, but the better way to put it is, well, it's a board game, frankly. It is. That's just exactly what it is. So, right now, I'm going to be showing the PS1 version. This is one that you don't see come up very often. Unfortunately, just of the many different releases of this game, you had the SNES, PS1, and Saturn versions. Only the SNES version ever got any form of digital release, which is a real shame, because the PS1 version had a lot of extra features to it. Which I personally feel make it a lot better as a kind of like starting game, so to speak. Oops, that's unfortunate. All right, well, let's try that again. Anyway, so basically the PS1 version added just a lot of more information on the menus, added more responsiveness, more save slots, importantly. And just generally looks and plays better, in my opinion. Now, you might have potentially heard that there's some slowdown in the PS1 version. Not really. It's more so that there's minor loading screens, but the funny part is, if you put them all side by side, like the PS1 version's still faster than the SNES version, because the SNES version has more text boxes, so it's whether you prefer more mashing or a slight loading screen. Anyway, so how do we start off the game? Well, first of all, you get 5 questions. Now, I'm not going to give you a guide on how to answer these questions, because I like to answer them randomly. See, these questions will determine your starting party, as well as who your main character is. You can pick their gender, but you can't pick anything else. These cards will basically decide what all that is. And all of this is contributing to a score that ends up adding up in the background, that it'll more or less tell you what's going on there. So, this is how I always like to do it. There's plenty of guides out there for speedruns or whatever else that will tell you, hey, just you gotta pick this under this situation, that kind of thing. Again, it's a board game. Whether you prefer your board games to be played with a shuffled deck or a specific setup is entirely up to you. That's the mentality that you should see going into this. It's a board game, played as a board game. That's how we're going to be handling this. So, alright. Let's see what we ended up winding up with this time. So, we look at our party here. We see that we've wound up with Lord Potato here. So you can get a bunch of different versions. One of the things I like about the PS1 version in particular is because your main character will be recolored to reflect what they actually are. So we got a wind elemental, just kind of sort of like a Valkyrie variant here. So Valkyries are your standard kind of mixed use unit. So in this case, you could put them in the back. You get an AoE magic attack, or they do a sort of middling amount of attacks in the front. Basically, how this breaks down, you see that F and B thingy over there on the bottom right? Basically, that is your fore and back function. Every unit will have this. The number is how many times they will do that thing. If they're in that particular role, the thing on the left is what that thing, is. So, basically, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, some units, like for example a wizard, we'll see this later, will just say magic there. That means that they have a list of different things that they can use, and they will use the most appropriate thing for that situation. Sometimes it seems random, but a lot of stuff has weaknesses that the game will never tell you about, which is honestly fine. A lot of the fights in this are automated, but they're automated more smartly than it may initially seem. So, we can see from our very starting units, these guys are going to be better in the front. They take 2 swings, they take 1 in the back, but overall, I mean, they look like pretty basic soldier guys, not expecting much from them. This guy's a beast tamer, but we don't have any beasts in the party. Although this lady's got some pretty beastly hairdo going on. And we start off with our 30 grand, and we go off to our first map. So, right off the bat, this tutorial is a little bit misleading, because it basically tells you to go and capture every town along the way. This tutorial map is one of the few cases where you may want to do this, but right off the bat, before we even get into party building, what you want to do is pause the game. I may notice the music stop. This is actually a PS1 version thing. And the other two, it'll continue playing, but basically this just tells you that the game is paused. Again, whether that's a good or bad thing is entirely up to you. So, what we have over here are a bunch of different towns and a bunch of different locations. We're going to slowly travel over to this place. However, first thing that you should do, and please bear in mind that this This is something that can potentially be risky, but we're going to go ahead and set the movement speed there to 3. This will make everybody travel a little bit faster. But you've got one hidden item here on this first map. This is going to be a random item, so we found a black axe, neato. So we'll go ahead and go over to our menu here. You don't have to pause, the menu will pause it. I just prefer doing so. Anyway, so get a good amount of strength off this thing, so we'll go ahead and give that to one of our frontline fighters here. This dude has slightly higher numbers. We'll go ahead and make that happen, and there we go. Now he hits real hard. Alright, so we'll unpause it, we'll select our leader, and we'll go ahead and head over this way. So, something that you should know is that the tutorial will tell you to capture every town that you can as soon as you can immediately. This is not necessarily how the game actually works. See, I guess it also depends on, you know, what ending you're going for. So you see that griffin over there on the top right, that little meter that he's holding up? Well, basically what that's telling you is how the world views you. You are playing as a kind of resistance leader of sorts. You have 1 squad to your name at the moment, and you're more or less doing this tutorial map to prove that you can get a free army. On each map, you have 3 days to complete that map, and you may notice we've already spent half a day just going over to this town here, but you have 3 days to complete the map in order to not lose reputation. So reputation will determine how people treat you in new places that you go. Alright, so this is going to be our first recruit guy. They actually tell you in the tutorial that there is a hidden town up here, but this is just kind of your introduction to the fact that if there is a suspicious-looking island, yeah, maybe you want to go over there and check it out. Maybe send a faster squad over there and just, you know, see what's up. Maybe you'll find an item, maybe you'll find a town. That's the main takeaway here. So yeah, we've already spent the first of our 3 days, and we've barely accomplished anything. So this means that you have to be relatively quick on your toes on a lot of maps to get things done. So, prioritizing taking towns is not necessarily going to be the best thing. On top of that, if you take a town, your money will go up while you're spending time there. But at the same time, if those towns are taken, you will take a huge drop in reputation. If you don't care about your reputation, that's fine. You know, do as you will, take all those towns, take all that income. In fact, if you want to get the best of both worlds, one thing that I'm sure somebody's already told you about if you heard about this game, take these first 3 towns and just leave the game on fast forward. Every time another day passes, it will give you another drop of cash. Let's see, Eskandal Blade, we'll see what that is. You may notice, again, all of these items seem pretty random because they are. Think about it like a item draw stack whenever you're playing a game. So you can absolutely get some of the best weapons ever right from the tutorial. So let's see what we ended up getting here. What's this thing do? Sword 15, sort of whatever the hell Eskandal is. These things all changed names over and over as the series went on. Seems like a good overall weapon, so we'll go ahead and give it to them. And we will go ahead and send them off to the next spot. Now, whether you prefer leaving it on pause or not to put in your orders is entirely up to you. But personally, I just prefer to do it that way. So we'll get our first little trickle of income there and move on to this spot. Alright, so this guy's test right off the bat is for us to have a 5v1 fight against an old man. Alright. First thing to know, what you might have heard about the fights being random is wrong. They're not quite random. Basically, each of your units has a set specific role that they will attempt to fulfill whenever they get into a fight. These commands over here, they're not random either. All of them are not even specifically about targeting. See, if you tell them to attack the strongest guy, they will automatically go for the thing with the highest health, but they will also receive a bonus to their physical stats while doing so. If you tell them to finish off a weaker guy, I believe they actually take a defense penalty because they're essentially trying to chase down people that are running away. If you tell them to go after the leader, I forget exactly what happens stats-wise, but they will target the leader. And then best will just be whatever is the most efficient way for them to attack at any given time. So in this particular case, we have one guy that we need to take out. We're going to tell him attack strong. Usually attack strong is going to be the one that you end up sticking to in a lot of cases. Just because if you're looking for overall raw damage, that'll be your go-to. So yeah, there we go. We're going to go ahead and beat down this old man. Well, that was a challenging boss fight. In some cases, by the way, he absolutely can two-shot your leader if he gets his second attack off, so either way. So he will now give you his army. And there we go, that's the tutorial done, and now we get our first starting team. So, what we've gone over already is that, yes, you want to set up your teams in a way that allows them to, well, support each other, more or less. The thing to understand about this game is it's not about raw damage. Oh, oops. I forgot that that is a thing that this thing can do. Anyway, so it's not about raw damage. That can help, but if you have a party that is entirely overpowered, you will potentially run into a situation where you are losing reputation and people are terrified of you, even if you are actually going around liberating towns and all that. See, because everything in this game will be reacting to stuff that you do. So if you have one party that is dramatically more powerful than everybody else, and you just have them sitting there grinding out fights over and over and over, A, if anything happens to that squad, you're screwed. But B, you'll notice that you can't take towns with them. You have to send the weaker squads in to go take those towns, because the locals will be terrified of seeing those guys anywhere nearby them. Because your individual units will adjust their stats depending on how you use them. Just trying to think about it realistically, that if you have, one team of Giga Tyrants going around crushing everything, they will probably be a little bit rude to the populace that they suddenly see as beneath them. Meanwhile, if you're swapping everybody around, putting new leaders in place, all that kind of thing, they'll probably be doing a little bit better on that front. So, these starting parties that they start you off with are a little bit iffy. Namely, first off, with this leader, we're not going to want them being a frontliner most of the time, so we're just going to go ahead and take away a couple of dudes here. Additionally, there are no beasts in this party, so we'll take this away. Why do we do this? Well, we want to have a leader that can quickly respond to things. So, each party will have a particular movement type assigned to them. Depending on the units in that party, they will essentially reassign their movement type to be the highest thing that they have on hand. In this particular case, if we go over to this party right here and check on their status, we'll see that this party is now going to be a high moving type. So, high sky type, as you see on the top right there. This is because it has a griffin in the party. Griffins can fly. You start off with 2 griffins in your stock, as well as 2 octopi. Put those into parties. The octopi move really fast. They're functionally boats. The griffins are functionally your air force. So, if you have units that can get somewhere very quickly, they can essentially respond to things a lot faster. Alright, so next thing, we're going to completely dismantle all of these terrible parties that they've given us. For one thing, why do you have a wizard leading a hellhound party? Who knows? Why do you have a beast tamer in the front row using mostly archers? That's completely unacceptable. Why do we have this wizard with another wizard and a frontline wizard? I don't know. Why do we have this guy over here? I mean, this is fine, actually. That party's fine. But what if we have this cleric with a bunch of archers? This is a generic one that almost everybody starts with, by the way. And this one's actually, honestly, just absolutely bizarre. I don't know why you'd have 2 beast tamers next to a swordmaster. Anyway, so let's make some parties. So, there's not going to be, just so you know, any unit, any combination, anything in any of these Ogre Battle games, Tactics Ogre, Ogre Battle, whatever they happen to be, anything can be broken. So if you've ever heard the thing like, oh, XYZ thing is broken, always use it, anything can be broken. Just always bear that in mind. Okay, so like right here, we're going to go ahead and take 1 beast tamer, because we want to make a beast squad. We have a lot of beast units. We're going to take that beast squad, beast tamer. We're going to put him over there. We've got one of these hellhounds. This one's one of the better hellhounds. We'll go ahead and put him over here, put him in front to guard the beast tamer. But we also want them to be pretty darn fast, so we'll put this octopus over here. Why did I say octopus weird? I don't know. Just roll with it. Alright, next up we want another team. I want a team that is going to be kind of like a frontline assault team. So we're going to take a swordmaster, we're going to put him over there. Swordmasters are kind of the male version of a hybrid frontliner. Which basically means that you can put them in either row and they'll do the job just fine, but they've usually got drawbacks. In this particular case, we wound up with very few healers, so I don't really have any. I believe I have 1 more healer to throw at this, so there we go. Why would this team work for assaults? Well, you've got a guy in the back row that has a special attack that'll essentially hit stuff pretty hard. You've got 3 grunts just kind of doing whatever, and a cleric to keep them going. They may not survive for very long, but they'll essentially do good at pushing things. Why is this team over here useful? Well, they can travel really fast through water, they can potentially get to areas that are lighter defended, and they've got 2 units that have 3 attacks in the front row, as well as a buff from the back row, meaning that functionally they have 8 attacks, 6 of which are stronger than they normally would be, in order to push the defenders out of a town, meaning that they're going to be very good for kind of flanking assaults. This guy also, though it's a little bit unclear what the giant is actually classed as, should function a similar role, except on land. And these guys over here are just built for replying to certain situations very quickly. See, you don't want to overuse your leader. You want to use them to reply quickly to certain situations, but you don't necessarily want to use them in the front line all the time. If your leader dies, it's game over. If any of your other units die, they are simply out of that fight. You can go and revive them, but usually the cost is prohibitive, and usually you just want to use items to do that instead. But technically speaking, you can just drag their happy ass over to a church and pray them back to life. Alright, next, I would like to have a fast DPS squad here, because we don't really have a whole lot in the way of exorcisms and things. I would like to have just a sheer AoE type situation. So, we're going to have a wizard in the back row. We are going to have a griffin over here. No, we want to... Actually, you know what? Let's do it like this. We're going to have a golem. So warlocks slash dollmasters are going to be boosting golems in the same way that a beastmaster would be boosting a beast. And so in this case, we're going to combine that with an octopus to have a second sort of side flanking squad on the water. And then next, we're going to take another beast tamer. We're going to combine this one with an archer, because there's a particular type of team that I would like to turn them into. So we're going to look for one with high int. Let's see, 56 is our highest so far. On high agility, high int, so 55 and high intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to pop that sucker back here, and then we are going to give them a griffin. We're going to go ahead and put that griffin up over here. Just have them as a frontline fighter. We can't put any more large units into that team, but we're going to go ahead and give them lands as their other frontliner. And here we go. This seems like an odd little duck of a team, but there is some logic to it. So we're actually going to resort that team real quick, because that's kind of a messed up setup for it. Or did I just drop them? They're over here. Okay, so what we want is this guy in the front row, this guy over here, this guy in the back, this one in the back. So, next question. What's the deal with the formations? What's with these shapes? Like, what's going on there? Well, it depends. See, I like to have kind of alternating shapes of different types of units in order to, well, basically have them replying to different situations. So, in a lot of cases, you'll notice, like, an enemy party will similarly be in all kinds of different shapes. If all of their attacks are going in one direction, so like if you look at each of these boxes as just 6 boxes, more or less, with 5 potential slots on each side, each unit will usually only be able to attack in sort of a Y shape in front of them. Meaning that if you have them off at an angle, like depending on the type of unit, sometimes it helps to have them off at an angle. So like right here I have 2 relatively high defense units with a caster in the back. In this case I want a solid line. Because they're using monster units, they're not going to be able to cover the full line, but having them take that middle area means that they'll be able to protect that backliner a lot better. Whereas something like this, where I have 2 units that again are ranged in the back, I have the frontliners arranged in a way where they will get the most attacks possible, but again we'll be covering that back line in a way where basically their attacks won't be affected as much. Like I'd expect the Griffin is able to hit all tiles on the opposite side, whereas the Archer would only be able to hit half of that location, but, you know, honestly it's fine. In this particular case, it's more for congruency's sake. She will eventually be a witch, so the eventual plan there is to have a unit that's really fast, able to stun the party while the Griffin throws out some extra damage and the frontliners attempt to clean up. The idea is more or less to have a sort of shock and awe type of thing there. With something like this, because those 2 front units are expected to throw out a lot of damage, and because the Beast Tamer has a lot of health, I want him to be able to sort of share in the damage if possible. Because again, this is a team that's not expected to have a lot of longevity, but it is expected to throw out damage and hopefully spread out any incoming damage as much as possible because there are only 3 units. Now, I'm aware that in a lot of cases this logic may seem a little bit hard to follow, but once the game starts going, you know, you'll sort of start feeling this out. So let's go ahead and test out these new parties here. Really the main important thing to get across here is just use your octopi, use your griffins, and bear in mind that you can always get more. There's a lot of them all over the dang place. When you're on the map, you actually have a chance at any time that you move to run into what's known as a neutral encounter, which will mean that that party will face off against a enemy unit. depending on the terrain that they're on. And it's functionally a Pokemon battle. You can convince them to join. You only have one chance to convince them, but hopefully we'll have a chance to show this off here. So, what we're going to do here, and we're just going to go ahead and deploy these different units to get an idea of what we're looking at. So, we look at Warcell here. We see that they're going to be a sort of a sea party. So, we see that we're nearby the sea. So, we're going to set up some waypoints. So, if you hold X, I apologize. If you go back and you hold square, I believe it was. Let me double check this. This is one of the features that every now and then I end up forgetting. But yes, if you hold square, you're able to select waypoints on the PS1 version. So in this case, we're going to have them go out into the water and then go head out there. Otherwise, they'll just take the most direct route whenever you tell them to go somewhere. Alright, so we're going to have them go there. We've got a standard land party, but I want them to be on defense. So I'm going to send this one over here. We're going to have our leaders stay and kind of be ready to react to things for the moment. I'm going to have my second squad go over here, just kind of go investigate these islands a little bit. Let's see, we've got our first flying type here, so I want them to go check out this island. This is actually a plot event up here. Please bear in mind that if you are starting this game and you're worried about missing out on plot events, you're worried about missing out on this, that, or the other, don't. Just play it through, you know, just do as you do. Whatever, if you end up finding plot events, if you don't, it's fine. The game will adjust and adapt accordingly. That's what I love about this series, that throughout all of it, it will just simply adapt to the stuff that you do, and it'll give you an interesting story every time. That's the deal. Again, play it. Don't play it like your life depends on it. Play it like it's a board game. You're there to have some fun. So, as you saw right here, sometimes you will get cards that will reduce your stats in different ways. This one right here is just telling you about how towns exist. That's also a mechanic, sure. So we've got this one that's over here on a town. What this means is we can either buy items, which there's all kinds of different things here, like you got a revive item, you got everybody coming in to assault one particular unit, you've got a couple of heal items, and you've got a different version of that same thing. So for example, the dinner bell here, so it allows you to transfer from one place to another immediately, so you can send somebody immediately back to base if you have too many units out on the field, for example, and you need to get a crippled one out of there. Or you can send everybody to your leader's location. This can be incredibly useful if, for example, you have a leader party that happens to have the ability to fly, meaning you can call back any extra units and just immediately call down an airdrop of your entire army onto wherever your leader is. It's very handy. So there's a lot more kind of like minute strategy behind a lot of this stuff than may initially seem to be there. But again, whether you choose to get involved in the plot, whether you choose to just do your little rebellion, there's 100 different ways through this game, and probably even more than that. I mean, your ending, it may seem like it's just you're off to fight the bad guys, but there's so much more going on at any given time that it's honestly just kind of hilarious. Like, by the end of the game, your leader can wind up assassinated, they can wind up king, they can wind up married, they can just wind up leaving, they can wind up handing over the earth to friggin' like the Antichrist, they can wind up saving the world from a hell invasion. There's so many different interactions that it's, again, it's just a choose your own adventure type of situation. So many different things can happen that it's just absolutely priceless how wide this particular net gets cast. But anyway, so like I was saying before, what we want to focus on a map at any given time is to try and focus down the actual objective as much as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple things. We're going to go over here. Now, normally, I'm not a gigantic fan of using items. I don't know why. It's like it's not even a, you know, get good kind of thing. It's just a, I don't know, it sometimes a lot of these items are so good it feels like cheating, but again, this is basically the game. So, one thing I should also mention, by the way, technically anybody that goes to a town also has the ability to, in many cases, recruit different types of units from there. So if you wanted raw recruits of some variety or another, in many cases you will have that there. The types of recruits that are available, as well as what classes they can potentially be, are going to vary based on the leader of the party that you've sent out. So, what we've done here, and the usual approach that I recommend taking with a lot of these maps is we have taken some immediate territory that, well, that's basically going to be just area that we're sure that you can control, right? So usually what you want to do is you set up an area that you're positive you can have absolute control over. The AI will not go for temples, which is these ones with brown roofs, but they may accidentally take them. They will, however, actively go after any undefended towns. So what you usually want to do is take some territory, set up a defensive perimeter just where you can potentially intercept any incoming armies, and then deal with them accordingly. Oh, we've used too many cards here. Let's go ahead and get rid of a Hierophant, I guess. Sure. Which, by the way, we haven't even covered the cards yet, but the cards are basically your one-time instant cheats that you can deploy at fights at any given time. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. So we've got a flying squad that's going to be good on the water. We've had the water squad. As you may notice, the water squad actually did get here faster than the flying squad because water movement is really quick. So we're going to spread these out a little bit in order to make sure that we can intercept any incoming stuff. Because we've got these water units, they're going to be fighting better since they are a sea type in the sea, as you'd figure. These guys are going to attempt to cross the ocean in the fastest manner possible, meaning that they will basically have to go over the water, where we have an advantage. Meanwhile, if we get into trouble at any point, we currently are running a massive overstock on cards, meaning that we can afford to burn a few things. Don't get too crazy on burning them, because again, you only get them when you capture a town, and while yes, you can allow a town to get captured over and over, usually you want to be a little bit conservative over what you allow to be used when. This particular party is pretty weak. They've got 2 frontline archers, which, yeah, expect a lot of the parties early on to be pretty terabad, frankly. Like, they've got 2 archers. They're going to do next to nothing. They're currently at a disadvantage terrain-wise. They're in the wrong line to actually attack anything. So these guys should more or less be able just to tear them apart. Now, if you're wondering about damage calculations and all that kind of thing over who wins, who loses, whatever else, it's just a raw number on each side. Whoever does the bigger numbers overall is the team that's going to end up winning. In this particular case, they ended up getting a lot more attacks, and the other team doesn't really have a whole lot of threat, so they ended up beating them very handily. Those guys, because they lost that encounter, got sent way back here. They will then attempt to ping-pong back in that same direction. This is something that you can abuse quite a bit for, different kind of defensive strategies, but it's there just so you know. So, again, our line right now, we have a few active fighters going on over here. I don't expect much threat to any of these towns, but anybody that's on a town tile will slowly recover. Meaning that usually you want to set up a couple of them on any given tile. You have them essentially recover and swap out. So if at any point this team ran into trouble, I could quickly have this one swap in for them, have these guys recover on this one, and just sort of adapt to how the AI is dealing with things. And that's really what you want to save the cards for, when you're on the back foot and you absolutely need a win. It's like right here, this team is absolutely no threat whatsoever. But, for example, if we wanted to use one of these, which, honestly, I don't like tower cards, they're not very useful, but, some of them are just free attacks, like that one, which tower is basically an earthquake attack that'll hit anything that's currently on the ground. Not that this team needs any particular help, but still. So they're going to go ahead and quickly wrap this fight up. But say, for example, we're in a situation where we want this team to go quickly take a break. We want to make sure that they're ready for some other plan that's coming up ahead, so we want to wrap them up quickly. So we're going to go ahead and use a second one. Hopefully ensure that this team is completely wiped out. Unfortunately, they seem to be having a bit of a problem actually hitting anything today. I'm not entirely sure what that's about, but well. Sometimes you will have those cases where, it's one of those dang an XCOM moments where they just won't hit anything. But it looks like, yeah, that'll go ahead and sort the job out just fine. So there we go. They've gone ahead and wiped that one out, and any party that's wiped out is just completely gone. Any party that has its leader taken out will end up retreating back to their HQ. If they get back to that HQ, their full party will be restored. Whether you use that for farming experience or for something else is entirely up to you. So there we go. And basically what we're looking at here is a situation where we want to make sure that their attacking party is at least deciding to go on the defensive a little bit, because the AI does kind of have an offensive and defensive mode here, but we want to kind of get them out of the mindset of attacking our towns, because as soon as we leave those towns, they'll attempt to try and capture them. Instead, we're going to try and get rid of their main attacking party, and as soon as they start pulling back, that is when we're going to be able to actually start storming forward. The whole point of those items from earlier is to ensure that at any given time we can make sure that we can more or less do that whole thing where we airdrop units onto a particular spot. It's very, very handy. In some cases you can just sort of have one unit shove through everybody else, but by and large you want to try and spread experience around so that you have a wide variety of units available, because it's not just the direct units themselves that are always going to be a threat. For example, you can have a unit that's as strong as anything, and they still may potentially do absolutely nothing to a ghost, in which case the most basic healer in the game can take care of that problem, well, no problem, but you need a way to actually deal with them. Or, potentially, you run into a situation where an entire map happens to be very water-based. So what do you do if you have no water units? Well, do you fly over it? Do you find some way to drag them onto land? Maybe you need more debuffs for a particular thing. Like, for example, witch units are one of the things that you can start with. And they'll roll for a chance to stun every unit on the opposite side. Isn't necessarily perfect? No, but the idea is that you've got a whole bunch of different units doing a whole bunch of different things, and, well... Anyway, we'll go ahead and let some others do a little bit of stuff here. So we see that they're very desperately attempting to take this town. Now, they will attempt to take the HQ, however, we have coverage from both sides here, and we have some units that can move very quickly. So what we're going to do is we're then going to send our 2 flyers over here. They'll attempt to cut them off in both directions. We're going to, let's see, this team is not looking terribly hot, so we're going to go ahead and send them over here. We're going to have these guys take over in that same role and attempt to cut off these guys before they can do anything serious. Oh, and there we go. There we go. There's one of those neutral encounters I was talking about that can happen at any given time. And so there we go. We have a Hawkman here. Now, the lower their health, the more likely they are to join, as well as how close their actual alignment is to the leader of the party. Now, Lance here, actually he's not even the leader. I don't know what the alignment is of this random beast tamer, but we're going to let them take a few attacks. That'll probably do the job just fine. They're just about half. Are they going to join? Yes. In this particular case, they joined. So we got a Hawkman, meaning that we can now make another flying party. So you can recruit pretty much anything like this. There's a lot of different unit types. There's some that are special types, some that you only get from items. Like, for example, you can find, Dracula blood, more or less. I think it's like dark blood or something that it's called. You can just turn somebody into a vampire, and then that vampire can recruit werewolves. Or, say you find another item that allows you to turn one of your soldiers into a were-tiger. There's just a bunch of weird, wacky unit types out there. Like, if you find a Dream Crown, you've instantly gotten one of your female soldiers into the most overpowered unit in the game. Which, again, bear in mind this was based off tabletop chess games, so the princess/queen is definitely going to be the best unit by far, because they instantly double the attacks of any unit on their team, and also instantly exercise anything that they run into. But yeah, this is a game that's not meant to be balanced. This is why it's my favorite kind of like hangout and chill out game, because it's not meant to be balanced. It's meant to be absolute, utter chaos. And yeah, you just adapt to the chaos. You just play it minute by minute. Sure, you can min-max whatever the hell you want, and then your plans will go absolutely haywire after an 80% chance roll fails, So, anyway, hopefully, hopefully you're getting some of the idea here of how this game is played, how you handle different situations, just in general, the kinds of stuff that you want to be looking for. You find any Hawkmen, you find anything with wings, you put it in a party, that party can now fly. There's a whole mechanic in the game that you can tear down city walls, which, yes, there are city walls that you have to overcome as well. Otherwise, you have to use the front gates. And you can overcome those city walls using using either flying units or termites. And it's funny because a guy gives you a box of termites. So yeah, like they start you off with 2 griffins just to make sure that, yeah, unless you specifically go out of your way to fire all of your flying units, you always have a unit that can get you over those city gates. But each map is going to have its own little interactions. I mean, there's one that's an entire map of just the main bad guy of the entire thing just trying to convince you to leave. They're just basically trying to convince you that they're the good guy, and everyone's just been running a PR campaign against them. And then it's just like, which side do you end up believing? You know, he specifically keeps telling you to show up there at night for some reason. You know, that's interesting. You have cases where there's a boss, for example, that asks to join you, and you may potentially be surprised at the fact that they give you a massive reputation drop if they do. Because if you think about it, they've been running around decapitating the countryside to turn people into pumpkin heads. Like, there's so many weird interactions. Just play it as a board game. Like, I see it... Like, this game, again, it's compared to the RTS genre and that kind of thing. I see it as closer to something like Betrayal at House of the Hill than, for example, like a Total War or something like that. In many cases, you'd argue that it's closer to Total War there, but it's just... Random situations happen, you have the party that you have in that given situation, and just react, and the game will react in turn, and you just sort of see what happens. Alright, so I think it's about time we went ahead and wrapped this up. So we'll go ahead and put this guy here, and unpause it. Send this nonsense out front, and we'll go ahead and get this map wrapped up. Because, yeah, I somewhat failed to mention this earlier, I think, but at any given point, you can revisit previous maps, so any towns that you have previously not captured, or liberated, anyway, there's actually a mechanical difference between capture and liberation, where if you match their alignment, it'll count as a liberation because they actually want you to be there, but if you don't match that alignment, and especially if you severely don't match that alignment, you'll end up losing reputation. But that's a little bit hard to necessarily arrange in the middle of a huge pitched fight. So, if you end up going back there later, when the map is all peaceful, and freeing up those towns at a time when, you know, stuff's a little bit more calm, then you will be in a far better position, and will be able to, well, to simply, you know, get your reputation shooting all the way up. You may potentially get more story events that way. Maybe you feel like going and finding some of the secret, like, hidden routes and whatever through the game. You know, interesting stuff might happen, is what I'm saying. Depending on whether your alignment's high or low, or the time of day, or whatever else. Joker Tarot, by the way, is just an item that instantly gives you a random card. I like to call this the Joker Cannon, because, yeah, later on you can buy a whole bunch of them, and you can just spam cards endlessly, if you have enough money to do so, that is. Oh, there's that witch I was talking about that has a chance to stun the entire party. Although it's kind of looking like they're about to get wiped out, so let's see what they do. And, well, 2 of them got stunned, but that's fine, because we can go ahead and make sure that that never happened. So, let's see. Temperance should get rid of that immediately. Like I said, these cards are just something that allows you to fix certain things. Unfortunately, the only official re-released version is the SNES version, which doesn't bother to tell you this information, so... yeah, that's not ideal. We'll just go ahead and hit this guy with a hammer because it's funny, and because I'm not probably sticking with the save file. Anyway, yeah, all of these cards, by the way, they scale off of the leader of the party. As far as the exact mechanics, I don't even know. I've played this game for years, and I've specifically never bothered looking it up because I find it more fun this way. Soul Mirror, I believe that's a thing that changes somebody's alignment. So they've gone ahead and met up with a leader now, which we actually should have stopped and used the summons, but oh well. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and retreat real quick here. By the way, every time you retreat, your alignment goes down a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and, well, we don't want to edit units, but we want to go ahead and use this mass summons. And there we go. So we've gone ahead and done that whole thing. And now, while we're in the pause menu, we can just have absolutely the entire party bum rush this castle. in a massive, massive little crush of their situation over here. And again, plays like a board game. Like this, every time that I use one of this, it reminds me of this one time where we're all playing Betrayal. Again, this is why this game always reminds me of it. And technically, there is no rule against the dog, which is one of the things that you can get in that, doing people-like things. It specifically says that people cannot hurt a specific dude in a specific situation, but it has no rule about a dog, which is technically classed as an item, picking up a different item and running itself off of a bridge. So, yeah, I mean, we ended up having about a 2-hour-long discussion over whether this technically should be a way that somebody could win the game. And, yeah, it's, ultimately we just allowed it to count because, rule of cool and all that kind of thing. But it's the same kind of mentality here, wherein stuff doesn't necessarily have to make sense or be balanced. It can just sort of be fun. You can absolutely have your entire party just show up and airdrop into the enemy castle. You can absolutely have cards that just allow you to mind control the entire enemy team, and you don't necessarily have... I mean, you can't use them that often. You can't guarantee that they're going to be there. You absolutely can just run into an item that has a salesman that sells you a bunch of items that will permanently boost stats of any particular unit. And there's nothing stopping you from going and, say, making that overpowered, instant princess thing from before, throwing on a crapload of intelligence buffs, and just watching them sweep the entire rest of the game. There's nothing stopping you from doing all this crap. Because, again, it's just a board game. It's just meant to be fun. It's meant to be chaotic. It's meant to be nonsense. And unfortunately, hitting that dog with an earthquake did not cause us to instantly win, but it doesn't matter because we've got the entire army right at their gates. I love this game because, like, it doesn't have to be easy to explain. It doesn't have to make sense. It's just a joy. And by the way, if you ever get tired of seeing these animations, you could always do this whole kind of thing where you turn off the animations and everything goes dramatically faster. Well, I say dramatically, it's mildly faster, but honestly, sometimes you just want to chill out and watch the animations play out. Sometimes I like turning off the animations just to imagine that somebody's playing with their little pieces. I just love that it goes to this little, like, versus board over here. You see the books in the background. I love that it's the little chess pieces moving across the board when it's on this screen. And this is actually one of those changes that they made for the Saturn version that's a little bit unfortunate, because they fully colorized them, which you'd think would be a positive, but yeah, I don't know, it kind of looks ugly. So there we go. We'll show off some card effects. We'll use that one to guarantee that guard party just leaves. And so, there we go. These two know each other, so they're going to have a different interaction as opposed to, say, if somebody else got there first. Where this lands guy is somebody that has actually worked with this guy before. So we'll just go ahead and drop a bunch of cards on him, because why not? It's funny. Just bringing our orbital lasers to this medieval battle, why not? What else we got here? Fool, yeah, there we go. We can just make his wizards leave. They're like, okay, bye. They just leave. Then we suddenly make it into a 1v1, but this isn't going terribly well, so we'll give everybody an extra round, because it's just a thing we can do. So yeah, hopefully this has been at least somewhat useful. I mean, I know it's a little bit of a scattershot beginner's guide, but I'm hoping that at least some important information got carried over. This is one of those ones that's like, how do you describe play the game and just... Okay, well, that's a little bit of a whoops on my part, because I accidentally ended up smacking my record button while yammering on about this, that, or the other. So, hopefully you get the general idea of, how you put these parties together. Basic things to remember. Yeah, just always use your fancy movement types, like right here. First order of business, we will go ahead and remove one of these basic soldierly mans, and we'll go ahead and replace him with a better Hawkman. Now, if you're worried about leaving certain units behind, don't. Basically, if you take lower level units, you put them into a higher level party, they'll quickly catch up. It basically spreads throughout the entire party. If you see somebody's alignment is dropping like a brick, like you look at your leader here and like, okay, this guy's doing fine. This is, well, this one actually ended up doing okay. Basically, anytime they fight a party that's lower level than them, they'll end up taking a penalty to their alignment, whereas if they fight somebody that's higher, it'll end up going up. Meaning that keeping that alignment high can be a little bit tricky in some cases. Yeah, there's tricks to do it, but for example, in some cases, you may find you find a, like, let's say, a staff on the ground, and that staff allows you to turn somebody into a sorcerer, which is an upgraded wizard. However, they need to have low alignment but high charisma. Strange, I wonder what that's about. But then you find out later that the sorcerer is basically a necromancer. And a necromancer can be into a lich, because you also found a card, or rather an item, that allows you to potentially do that. And if you, for whatever insane luck reason, happen to have gotten both of these things within the first couple levels, there's nothing stopping you from just immediately getting a lich. So, anyway, point being, everything is just constantly interacting with anything. First playthrough, I recommend just understanding movement types and trying to only take territory that you can hold. And then from there, upon subsequent playthroughs, then maybe, experiment a little bit, figure out what kind of areas you maybe could potentially interact with sooner. Maybe there's story events that you're noticing come up here or there. Maybe you're starting realizing, hey, if I go back to this other map and talk to somebody, I might find something interesting. Maybe these people, this, that, or the other, know each other. It's a pretty expansive map, and you can technically revisit anywhere at any point, and several of the subquests basically require you to do so. So yeah, and other than that, just remember that you can revisit maps to capture those towns that you didn't capture the first time. So for example, we just cleared out this map, but we can now have our leader go around and clean up any spots that we missed. Were there spots that we missed? I don't remember. Probably. So we'll go ahead and fly them down to this town over here. What's their alignment looking like? It's probably around the middle. Most of them are usually around the middle. Yeah. By the way, bear in mind, and by the way, man, notice our reputation meter went up a little bit because we did well so far, and we finished that map in under 3 days. You may notice as time ends up going on that there's certain maps that you start suddenly taking reputation losses, as if you're basically doing everything backwards. Yeah, if you end up invading, say, another country, some of these things start working in reverse. Just kind of throwing that out there. Just something to consider, just so you know. Anyway, that'll be that. You guys have a good one. Take care. I hope this was useful. And have yourselves a good one. Alright? Oh, actually, wait. One more thing I should probably mention. These hidden towns, these quote-unquote neutral towns, nothing is going to change when you get them. You get a card, and you sometimes get an item. And you sometimes get an interaction, but your reputation will not be affected by them. So, wait. We found the gnomish nugget? Okay, I haven't even seen this. What the hell's this? Okay, apparently we got a Keebler cookie. I don't... Okay, anyway. New interactions. So, you guys have a good one. Take care. Have yourselves a good one.